right, Patrick, for our very first topic, we're going to talk about how there seems to be a storm on the East Coast and it's not related to the weather. Now, lots happening in the East Coast. When COVID first happened, you and I talked about how some of the micro markets, especially the East Coast, was going to benefit from this given affordability and given the work from home movement. That movement, by the way, is not ended. It's just starting. But what's happening on the East Coast? Because quite a bit of change happening in that market. We've seen some huge appreciation in the last couple of years, huge rental rate increases, way lower vacancy than ever before, and some really good job prospects that have been quite strong, stronger than I thought they would be post-COVID. I like to see that.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple things that we have to shine a light on. I mean, we've been talking about this for months, where we are seeing people move into affordability. And of course, what's happening on the East Coast is it is affordable, dramatically more affordable than Toronto. And so we're seeing a lot of people in that kind of, we'll call it Ontario/Toronto region, moving into Halifax. Now, a lot of that is the work from home cohort. Many of those are, but there's also jobs that are happening in Halifax. So we see affordability. We're also seeing a real demand versus supply issue, which we're seeing all over the country. But when you're into the region and you're into Halifax specifically, we're talking about here, although it's happening throughout, really throughout the Maritimes, but Halifax specifically. Point is that you're seeing a lot of demand, limited supply. What's driving some of the jobs, of course, is construction. I still say that through it all, there's some great opportunities for investors out there, especially in the cash flow side of the equation. Appreciation early on, I think, will gain, but I still, just because it's East Coast, I still say we have to be a little bit aware of the job market and is it sustainable. I think certainly over the next 2 or 3 years, I don't see any big issues, but we have to be aware that it is a very dramatic and can be a very volatile job market on the coast. Having said that, because what we're seeing is with technology, what we're seeing with services, and what we're seeing with that work from home, it's an interesting dynamics that's starting to unfold, and we're seeing it in the housing as people now move interprovincially into that area.
Well, Patrick, right from the beginning, when we talked about this during the early days of COVID, I talked about how even if just a very small percentage, a tiny percentage, a fraction of a percentage move from the GTA to the East Coast or to any micro market like one of mine, Peterborough, Orillia, as an example, it makes a massive impact in that market and very little impact on the GTA because it's such a big market. And that's essentially what we saw. And by the way, we are seeing, and I think we're still going through the reversal of that. What I mean by that is I'm seeing this happening all the time. I just got a phone call this week from somebody who was leaving Peterborough, moving back into the city, moving back into their condo downtown because their job wants them back at the office. And that whole process is still going to take some time to unwind. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's not having a major impact on either market. And I'm not seeing any major outflow out of micro markets like Peterborough or the East Coast or any other micro market. What's happening though is rents in places like the East Coast, Halifax has had the number one growth. If you look, we're going to put up this chart. Halifax in 2021 went up 4.8% their rents. In 2022, 9.3%. They are the best performing rental increase. If you measure it by rental increase, they're the best performing market of the ones we tracked here, which is 7 different markets. So interesting what's happening on the East Coast. Can it sustain, Patrick? That's really the question. And so far, my opinion and what we've seen, they're sustaining it better than I thought they would, I got to say.
Yeah, I don't know if I had a view of it other than to say we knew it was happening. I still think that work from home cohort is going to be very, very strong. We're talking a lot at our R4 conference that's coming up. We'll be talking about 5G and the impact of 5G on that particular cohort of people. It really opens up doors of opportunity. Here's the concern about, some of these smaller cities, and we're talking about Halifax in this conversation. I just want to shine a light on it, is the infrastructure that it takes to support rapid population growth is really inconvenient, really annoying, really expensive. So we start to see when these cities, and if the economic development isn't keeping up with what's happening, it can be problematic. And, at the end of the day, people leaving Toronto and Ontario because of affordability, as an example, it can't all land in Halifax. Halifax can't take it on. The East Coast can't actually take on that volume. So those are some of the concerns, and housing is one of them. Where are we going to put people when you have that kind of inflow? So those are some concerns. But on an investor side of it, I think that if you're going in and being really specific in terms of what is the cohort you're actually providing housing for, and what it is that your exit strategy is, what are your plans for that property? So in other words, go in with a plan, understanding what the dynamics of that market are. I think there's some great opportunities for investors. And so a good place to be looking for great deals.
Here's another cool chart. The population growth in Atlantic Canada has been quite robust, since, it's actually been for quite some time, but especially post-pandemic. 50% of that growth appears to have gone to Halifax, which is why that market has performed so well from a real estate perspective. But what I will say is two things. Number one, that region is now going through the same type of problems the rest of the country is going through, which is affordability. By the way, affordability is becoming an issue there too, especially when you have locals trying to buy local things. They're saying, listen, this is not even affordable for us anymore. So they're going through their affordability challenges just like the rest of the country. They're not immune to it, first and foremost. But second of all, and this is really, really important, is some investors are going to chase that market. And some investors got ahead of it. Good job, good move. You saw the future. And as an investor, you need to invest for the future. But some people, Patrick, are going to chase that market. And just because the price is lower than other places, whether it be GTA, whether it be BC, whether it be wherever you're investing, if you chase any market, your risk profile goes up significantly, and that's where investors, speculators, guessers get hurt.
Well, and you make a great point, and I think there's probably some FOMO happening in the investor market out there, where people are just rushing in, doing what they did even across the country earlier on. So this is something to be aware of. I think that sophisticated investors are going to go in, they're going to pay attention, they're going to look for cash flow, they're going to look for those deals. I know there's a couple of wholesalers in Halifax that we happen to have within the REIN community are hitting it out of the park, and they're finding great deals for investors, and those investors are taking advantage of it. But again, they're, as much as they're betting on appreciation, they're buying for cash flow, and they're being really strategic and responsible in terms of how they're going into that market.
Beautiful. Patrick, East Coast, sticky note covered. Let's see how my aim is on this show. Oh, looks like I'm right on point.
If you're interested in learning about investing in real estate the right way, look at our Real Estate Investing in Canada program. 15 steps to successfully investing in real estate. Thousands of real estate investors have learned the right way to invest in real estate following those 15 steps. You're absolutely going to love that program. Take a look, click on the link in the description below.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe. And if you've enjoyed this, please share it with someone that you know, because it's going to be incredibly valuable to them. Also, we'd love to hear from you, so please comment below. If you want to see more stuff like this, click here. If you want to see the entire show, click there.